Hey guys, Edward here. So, today is September 27th, 2025. That is 200 years since the first steam passenger railway opened. In honor of that, for my month's daily debate class, I've prepared a speech that I'm going to be giving soon in my debate class. And I made it, and this poster that you see on screen for school. I wonder what y'all will think about it. I'm gonna read it. Here we go. Trains. Where would you be without them? They've had a rise, fall, now meandering phase through the world's existence. From the simplest of steam locomotives to the complex modern maglevs. Trains have always been there since the Industrial Revolution. I'll tell you the tale of how they went from experimental teapots to luxury service, from declining economies to modern-day marvels. Trains have, ironically, had quite the journey throughout their time, and it's a story still unfolding to this day. It all started back in the early 19th century in Great England, who was experiencing a revolutionary era. At the time, canals were proving to be innovative, but also expensive and slow to transport. Men were looking for a cheaper and easier way to transport their supplies, and two men by the names of Richard Treverick and George Stephenson did just that. They put James Watson's steam generator onto iron wheels and rails, creating the first steam-powered locomotive. It took multiple more tries, but the idea finally got perfected. They tried and sold the idea to many local mines, ones that used horses to pull mine carts on iron rails. It worked fantastically, until it broke the iron rails. The rails were too weak to support the weight of the locomotive. The problem, however, was quickly resolved by using steel rails instead. It worked almost flawlessly after that. People began to hear about the news, and eventually they began to develop into the passenger traffic. A humongous fun fact for you all today, September 27th, is actually 200th anniversary of the first public steam passenger railway, the Stockton and Darlington Railway, opening back in 1825. I literally could not have planned out this speech better, and you can search it up if you want. Because of the success of that railway, people decided to slow down on the canal ideas and focus investing into this innovative and brand new railway. More began to slowly be built. Eventually, it wasn't long before the country was caught in the eyes of their neighboring buddies. Each country began to make modifications to their engines to better equip them for the country's differences. American locomotives, for example, have bells on majority of them, while many others do not. Eventually, they began to grow over time, while also spreading to other parts of the world. People had become inspired by these machines, and for good reasons. They could pull multiple times their weight, they could travel faster than a water vehicle, and they were pretty cheap to ride on. Almost every town in the world once had a train passing through them. Some rail lines challenged the norm of their environment, like for example the Florida East Coast infamous Key West extension, which crossed the ocean multiple times. Another good example is the Glacier Express, which is a passenger train that travels through the Swiss Alps, over valleys, and through multiple tunnels. Many towns, in fact, were built because of the rail lines that once delivered supplies and passengers to these locations. Many locations that were put on the map, London, France, Tokyo, New York, and more, had majority of their respective countries' rail lines reach there. As time passed, they became faster, stronger, fancier, and more reliable. Trains have made their spot in the history books. The General, the Orient Express, the Flying Scotsman, and the 20th Century Limited. These were the machines that said you travel in every way possibly better. Media has also many well-known fictional trains, like Thomas the Tank Engine, the Hogwarts Express, and the Polar Express. Would Christmas or Harry Potter be as significant as they are without them? These trains prove how much of a cultural significance these machines had on their environment and people. They were considered a pinnacle of transportation throughout the early 20th century, but then hard times hit the rails in the 50s to the 70s, with Henry Ford's Model T car being produced, as well as in part of the Wright brothers' Flyer 1, that began the slow and gruesome demise of rails. As cars, planes, and buses became increasingly relevant worldwide, people now began to live in wide, sparse suburbs. They wanted something more convenient than being far outside their house. They wanted to have their own personal transportation. At first, rail lines were seeing some small decreases, nothing too bad, but as they crested the midpoint of the 1900s, it became clear that things were going to get bad for them. Rail lines began to lose money from less goods or ridership, leading to decreased operations, poor maintenance, and unrestful workers. British Railways, for example, began to annex some services and branch lines to make money. Rail companies were forced to make tough choices, like shut down and tear up some rail lines, merge two or more railroads together, and anything else to survive. Some rail lines, like in Japan, felt susceptible to privatization. Manufacturing began to slow, customers went away, and it seems like rails have faded far from the golden days, possibly forever. If it wasn't for some governments and their policies, chances are that many more countries would have lost trains for good. Today, you can see some pieces of the former glory if you know where to look, like a bridge with 3 spans but only 1 track on it. While rails haven't fully recovered from the mega losses, trains have slowly started to make a comeback into modern-day society. Remember what I mentioned about governments? Well, some thankfully realized the significance of trains and implemented either national rail departments or put minor restrictions on plane car traffic. Amtrak, for example, was formed in order to unite and save all passenger traffic in America, as highways now get congested and airlines are usually filled. Rails across the world have slowly started to become the defining way of modern-day freight delivery. Freight trains have grown but also rebuilt themselves to meet modern-day needs, and sure enough, they are very reliable. Passenger transport is a bit harder to see an increase in, but high-speed rail is starting to become a reality. We all know the infamous maglev in China, which is capable of speeds up to 268 miles per hour, 186 being the usual cruising speed. As we know, high-speed rail has also been a popular dream amongst many Americans living in the United States, and with private companies like Brightline, projects like the California High-Speed Rail Corridor, and updates to the Northeast Corridor, Amtrak's privately owned high-speed rail line in the Northeast, it appears that many strongly agree that high-speed rail holds great promise. Some rail lines have been slowly rebuilt to accommodate passenger travel as well. Take a look at the South Shore Line in Indiana, which recently relayed track and had been ripped out for a long time ago to reach places that had not seen a train and also a long time ago. Other things they have done is add a second main track, expand stations, and invest in many communities along the line, with big plans for economic activity coming into Northwest Indiana region. Another good example is the East Broadtop Railroad in southern Pennsylvania, which is a tourist company going through an ambitious new program to rebuild the entire majority of their line. If projects like those that leave me hopeful for the future, but however, there's still a long-lasting battle. Like how Rails to Trails organizations have been ripping up abandoned rail lines to turn into trails, or how some projects like the Lackawanna Cutoff have been delayed more by the government because of a rare bat breeding ground. Overall, I believe that rail transport in general has been slowly growing to meet the better and more modern needs of the people. Let this be a new beginning for trains and many new opportunities for this to bring in the future as well. Happy 200th to trains, everyone. And that is my speech for debate. Personally, I'm really happy with it. I feel like maybe I could add in more, but it's supposed to be something short and sweet. I hope you guys liked my little speech. And like the speech said, happy 200th years to trains, and let there be another 200 more. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Good night.